The sleek shuttle docked with a soft thud against the Merexian space station. Lieutenant Commander Taiho Park watched through the viewport as the docking clamps secured. His heart raced despite his calm exterior. After years of distant communications, humanity was finally meeting the Merexians face to face. "Ready, Lieutenant Commander?" Captain Lee asked, adjusting her uniform one last time. "As ready as I'll ever be, Captain," Taiho replied, straightening his own dress uniform. The small delegation of 5 humans represented Earth's United Space Command. Taiho had been selected for his diplomatic experience and calm temperament, traits that would be tested today. The airlock cycled open with a hiss. Light flooded in, brighter and slightly more blue-tinted than Earth standard. Taiho blinked as his eyes adjusted. 3 Merexians waited in the reception area. They stood nearly 7 feet tall, their slender bodies draped in flowing garments that shifted colors like oil on water. Their skin had a subtle iridescent quality that made them appear to glow from within. "Welcome to Orbital Station, Nerath," said the central figure, bowing slightly. "I am Ambassador Talon." Captain Lee stepped forward and performed the greeting they had practiced, right hand open across the chest. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, we thank you for your hospitality." The formal greetings continued, each human introducing themselves in turn. When it came to Taiho, he noticed the Merexians studying him with particular interest. Ambassador Talon addressed Captain Lee, but gestured toward Taiho. "By tradition, we request that Lieutenant Commander Park participate in our welcome ceremony before diplomatic discussions begin." Captain Lee glanced at Taiho with slightly raised eyebrows. This hadn't been in the briefing. "It is a great honor," Talon continued. "Only those we see as true bridges between our peoples are invited." "I would be honored," Taiho said without hesitation, though uncertainty gnawed at him. Captain Lee nodded. "When would this ceremony take place?" "Immediately," said Talon. "Your other delegates will be shown to their quarters. Lieutenant Commander Park will rejoin you before the evening meal." Taiho was separated from the group and led down a curved corridor by a Merexian aide. The station's architecture blended function with organic forms. Nothing was perfectly straight or square. "What exactly does this ceremony involve?" Taiho asked. The aide's large, almond-shaped eyes blinked slowly. "It is a purification ritual, a cleansing of body and spirit to prepare for meaningful exchange." That sounded harmless enough, but the aide's vague explanation left much to the imagination. Taiho's diplomatic training had taught him to expect the unexpected when dealing with new cultures. They arrived at an ornate door carved with spiraling patterns. It slid open silently, releasing a cloud of sweet-smelling steam. "Please enter," the aide said. "The attendants will guide you through the ritual." Taiho stepped into what appeared to be a bath chamber. The floor was made of something like polished stone that felt warm under his feet. The walls curved upward to a domed ceiling where soft lights twinkled like stars. In the center of the room was a large, shallow pool filled with steaming liquid that wasn't quite water. It had an opalescent sheen. The aide departed, and Taiho stood alone, wondering what to do next. His question was answered when a hidden door on the far side of the chamber opened, and 3 Merexians entered. Unlike the diplomats who wore formal attire, these Merexians wore simple, close-fitting garments that reminded Taiho of swimwear. Their iridescent skin showed more prominently on their exposed arms, shoulders, and faces. They were clearly female, with more delicate features than the males he'd met earlier. "Lieutenant Commander Park," said the one in the center, her voice melodic and clear. "I am Nera. These are my associates, Yuma and Minji. We will conduct your welcome ritual." Taiho nodded, suddenly aware of what cleansing ritual might actually mean. A bead of sweat formed on his brow that had nothing to do with the steam. "Is this a bathing ceremony?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Nera smiled. "It is a purification. Physical cleansing is but one aspect. It prepares both body and mind for diplomatic exchange." "I see," said Taiho, though he clearly didn't. In human culture, bathing is typically a private activity. The three Merexians exchanged glances that Tahoe couldn't quite interpret. Among Merexians, purification is a sacred duty, Nera explained. Those who attend to diplomats are trained in the highest arts of our culture. It is considered a great honor to both give and receive this service. Tahoe weighed his options. Refusing would be a diplomatic insult at the very start of humanity's relationship with the Merexians. His discomfort was a small price to pay for successful first contact. "I understand," he said finally. "What should I do?" Yuna stepped forward, holding what appeared to be a folded garment. "You may disrobe and wrap this around your lower body." Taking the cloth, Tahoe was relieved to find it was substantial, more like a towel than he feared. "Could I have some privacy to change?" The attendants nodded and turned their backs. Tahoe quickly removed his uniform and wrapped the cloth around his waist. It adhered to itself somehow, staying securely in place. "I'm ready," he announced. The attendants turned back. Nara gestured to a stone bench near the pool. "Please be seated, Lieutenant Commander." Tahoe sat down, acutely aware of his bare chest, and the three alien women studying him with professional interest. "Your physiology is fascinating," Minji remarked, her large eyes taking in his features. "The medical texts do not capture the subtle variations." Thank you," Tahoe responded uncertainly. Nara approached with a small bowl of shimmering liquid. "This cleansing oil will prepare your skin. May I apply it?" Tahoe nodded, reminding himself this was diplomacy, not personal. Nara's touch was light and professional as she applied the oil to his shoulders and back. The substance warmed on contact, releasing a scent like vanilla and something else he couldn't identify. "This oil allows for better exchange," Nara explained. "It opens pathways between minds as well as cleansing the body." "Exchange?" Tahoe asked, suddenly alert. "What kind of exchange?" "Of understanding," said Yuna, approaching with a different bowl. "The oils contain microorganisms that facilitate neural synchronization. It is temporary, but it helps bridge the gap between different species." Tahoe tensed. "You're putting something in my brain." "Not precisely," Nara said soothingly. "The organisms never enter your neural tissue. They create a field that allows impressions to pass more easily between minds in close proximity. It helps overcome the limitations of verbal communication." Tahoe wasn't sure if that was better or worse. "Is it safe for humans?" "We have studied human biology extensively," Minji assured him. "The organisms are tailored specifically for compatibility with your species." This was well beyond what Tahoe had been briefed about. Still, he reminded himself that the Merexians had been studying humans for decades through exchanged scientific data. If they wanted to harm humans, they had easier methods than an elaborate bathing ritual. "Proceed," he said with as much confidence as he could muster. As Yuna applied a different oil to his arms, Tahoe began to feel a subtle tingling sensation. Thoughts that weren't quite his own brushed against his consciousness, impressions of curiosity, respect, and something like scientific interest. "I can feel something," he said, surprised at how pleasant the sensation was. Nara nodded. "The connection is forming. This is why the welcome ritual is so important. It establishes understanding beyond words." As the ritual continued, Tahoe found himself caught between human modesty and fascination with this new experience. The attendants worked with professional efficiency, explaining each step as they went. Though physically exposed, Tahoe realized this wasn't about his body at all. It was about establishing a foundation of communication. Through this strange neural connection, he began to grasp concepts about Merexian culture that would have taken weeks to explain in words. Their society valued harmony above all, with intricate social rituals designed to prevent conflict before it began. In turn, the Merexians seemed to be learning about him, about humans, through the same connection. Their expressions showed surprise, curiosity, and occasionally something like amusement. "Your species thinks in such interesting patterns," Nara commented. so quick to form connections between seemingly unrelated concepts. Taeho realized he was no longer embarrassed. This wasn't just a bath. It was first contact in its truest form, minds reaching across the vast gulf of different evolutionary paths to find common ground. As the ritual neared its end, Taeho understood why he had been chosen. The Marexians had detected something in his psychological profile, an openness to new experiences combined with diplomatic tact that made him the ideal candidate for this intimate introduction to their culture. He also realized something else. In this vulnerable moment, he had learned more about these aliens than any amount of formal meetings could have achieved. And they, in turn, had learned about humanity through him. It wasn't just a welcome ritual. It was the foundation of everything that would follow. The purification ritual continued as Taeho sat on the edge of the shallow pool. Nara approached with a long, curved tool that looked like a cross between a comb and a brush. Its bristles emitted a faint blue glow. "This will open your dermal layers to receive the second stage oils," she explained. "It may create an unusual sensation." Taeho nodded, still not entirely comfortable but committed to seeing the process through. "Go ahead." When the glowing bristles touched his shoulder, he felt a pleasant tingling that spread across his skin. The sensation was strange but not unpleasant, like carbonated water flowing over his body. "You're very calm," Yuna observed as she prepared another bowl of iridescent liquid. "Most first-contact species find this part distressing. We humans have a saying, 'When in Rome, do as the Romans do,'" Taeho replied. "It means adapting to local customs when visiting others." The three Marexians exchanged glances. "Who are these Romans?" Minji asked. "Another species from your world." Taeho laughed. "No, an ancient human civilization. It's just an expression now." "Fascinating," Nara said. "Your species references defunct social groups in current communication. This suggests a strong connection to historical memory." As they worked, Taeho noticed something odd. The three attendants carried themselves with an authority that seemed at odds with their role. Their vocabulary was sophisticated, and they occasionally used technical terms that suggested advanced education. "May I ask a question?" Taeho ventured as Yuna applied a new oil to his back. "Of course," she replied. "What is your regular position in Marexian society? Outside of conducting welcome rituals, I mean." The three exchanged glances again, this time with what appeared to be amusement. "I serve on the High Council for Interspecies Relations," Nara said. "I oversee all diplomatic initiatives with non-Marexian cultures." Taeho nearly choked in surprise. "You're a counselor. But why are you bathing me?" "I am the foremost expert on human culture," she explained simply. "This ritual requires precise knowledge to calibrate the neural synchronization. It would be improper to delegate such an important task." Taeho struggled to process this information. "And you?" he asked, looking at the others. "I am the chief xenobiologist for the Human Research Division," Yuna said. "My team developed the specific compounds we're using today." "I am the strategic analyst for potential alliance partners," Minji added. "I evaluate compatibility for long-term cooperation." Taeho was stunned. In human culture, physical care is usually performed by specialized service providers, not by high government officials. "How strange," Nara said, genuinely puzzled. "Who better to establish first neural connection than those most knowledgeable about your species? This isn't mere physical cleansing. It's the foundation of all future relations." As if to emphasize her point, the oil Nara was now applying had a different quality. When it touched his skin, Taeho felt a rush of information, not words exactly, but concepts and impressions flooding into his mind. "What's happening?" he gasped. "The second stage oils contain specialized nanobots," Yuna explained. "They create temporary neural bridges. Information can flow both ways now." Images flashed through Taeho's mind: Marexian history, social structures, values. He understood suddenly that their society organized itself around concepts of harmony and collective wisdom rather than individual achievement. Leadership was based on proven expertise, not political power or wealth. "This is incredible," he whispered. Through the neural bridge, he felt their surprise at his reaction. "You didn't know?" Nara asked. "We explained this technology in the 6th data packet we sent to Earth 2 years ago." Taiho frowned. "I never saw any information about neural transfer technology in our briefings." The 3 Merexians stopped their work, exchanging concerned glances. The data packets contained all essential information about Merexian physiology, culture, and technology, Minji said. "Your leaders confirmed receipt and understanding." A sinking feeling settled in Taiho's stomach. "I think there's been a serious misunderstanding. Our scientists probably thought those data packets were theoretical descriptions, not practical technologies you expected us to prepare for. But we included application protocols and safety parameters," Yuna said, clearly troubled. "Did your species not test the neural compounds we provided in the sample kit?" Taiho closed his eyes, realizing the magnitude of the error. "I don't think anyone knew what they were. Our diplomats have been preparing for traditional negotiations, verbal exchanges, written agreements." Through the neural connection, he sensed their alarm. For Merexians, this ritual wasn't ceremonial. It was the actual negotiation. The formal meetings afterward were merely for documenting what had already been established during neural exchange. "This explains the confusing responses from your leaders," Nara said slowly. "We thought humans were being deliberately evasive about key alliance terms." "No, just completely unaware," Taiho admitted. "Our species relies heavily on verbal and written communication. The concept of neural information exchange is still theoretical for us." The 3 Merexians stepped back slightly, conferring in quick, musical tones too fast for Taiho to follow. He sensed their conversation was serious, perhaps even alarmed. "Is there a problem?" he asked. Nara turned back to him. "We must consider how to proceed. The alliance framework assumes mutual understanding through neural exchange. Without it, misunderstandings could lead to conflict." Taiho thought quickly. The diplomatic mission could fail before it truly began if he didn't find a solution. "Look," he said, "I'm experiencing the neural exchange now, and it's working. Perhaps I can serve as the bridge until we develop protocols for wider exchange." The Merexians seemed surprised by his suggestion. "That would place tremendous responsibility on you alone," Yuna said. "The knowledge transfer is extensive." "I understand that," Taiho replied. "But it's better than abandoning the alliance talks altogether." Through their connection, the Merexians sensed his sincerity. Slowly, Nara nodded. "We will continue, but with modified protocols," she decided. "Yuna, prepare the limited transfer compound instead." As the ritual resumed, Taiho felt the neural connection deepen. Through it, he began to understand the true complexity of Merexian society, their 8th-generation perspective on decisions, their collective consciousness during important moments, their fundamentally different understanding of individual identity. At the same time, he felt them exploring his mind, examining human concepts that seemed strange to them: competitive achievement, romantic love, artistic expression for its own sake. "Your species values unpredictability," Minji observed with what seemed like concern. "You celebrate when events diverge from expected outcomes." "In some contexts," Taiho explained, "creativity often comes from unexpected connections. But how do you maintain social cohesion without predictable behavior patterns?" Nora asked, genuinely puzzled. "We have laws and social norms, but we also value individual freedom," Taiho said. "The tension between these creates our social dynamics." Through the neural link, he sensed their struggle to comprehend this balance. To Merexians, harmony was everything. Divergence was considered potentially dangerous. "Your military training interests me," Minji said, focusing the neural connection on his memories of command school. "You prepare for conflict extensively, yet you claim peaceful intentions." Taiho felt defensive. We prepare for defense. The galaxy is unknown to us, potentially dangerous, including us. Minji pressed, her large eyes studying him intently. Through their connection, Taiho realized the critical moment that had arrived. Honesty was essential. The neural link would reveal deception anyway. Yes, including you, he admitted. Until we know each other better, caution is natural. Don't Marexians prepare for potential threats? We prepare for harmonious integration, Nara corrected. Our first assumption is compatibility, not conflict. Taiho considered this fundamental difference. Perhaps that's something we can learn from you. He felt their surprise at his admission. And something else. Respect. For Marexians, acknowledging another's superior approach was deeply honorable. And perhaps we have things to learn from humans as well, Nara conceded. Your adaptability is remarkable. In moments, you've adjusted to neural exchange when your species had no preparation for it. As the final oils were applied, Taiho felt the neural connection reaching its peak. In this moment of shared consciousness, he understood the Marexians more clearly than any human ever had, and they understood him. Through this single point of contact, two vastly different species were finding common ground. The ritual is complete, Nara announced finally, stepping back. You have honored us with your openness, Lieutenant Commander Park. Taiho stood, feeling strangely energized despite the intensity of the experience. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. I believe I understand now what we need to do for a successful alliance. And what is that? Minji asked, her tone suggesting this was a test. Taiho smiled. We need to create new methods of communication that honor both our ways. Humans aren't ready for full neural exchange, but we can begin with more comprehensive data sharing and modified rituals like this for key representatives. The three Marexians looked at each other, then back to him. Slowly, they each touched their fingertips to their foreheads, and then extended their hands toward him. A gesture he now understood represented approved consensus. You will join the council meeting tomorrow, Nara said. Together, we will find a new path forward. As Taiho prepared to leave the chamber, he realized humanity had been approaching these negotiations completely wrong. They had been planning to discuss trade, technology exchange, and security. All important topics, but entirely missing the Marexian focus on compatible thought patterns and harmonious integration. Thanks to this unexpected ritual, he alone understood what was truly at stake, and what incredible opportunities awaited if they could bridge the gap between two fundamentally different ways of experiencing the universe. Taiho followed Nara toward the deeper part of the bathing pool where the next phase of the ritual would take place. The water, if it could be called water, had a silky quality that seemed to support his weight. As he moved, he noticed something odd on Minji's forearm as she prepared the next set of oils. A pattern of small marks spiraled around her wrist, different from the flowing symmetrical patterns he had observed on other Marexians. His military training kicked in. Different markings often indicated different allegiances or factions, something he'd observed in dozens of diplomatic missions across Earth. Was Minji from a different region, or perhaps a different political group? Taiho kept his face neutral as he lowered himself into the pool. The neural connection from the first oil still hummed in his mind, but he carefully contained his suspicions behind mental barriers. If Marexians could read his thoughts, he didn't want to broadcast his concerns. The submersion phase enhances neural receptivity, Yuna explained, adding aromatic compounds to the water around him. You may experience more vivid impressions. I look forward to it, Taiho replied with a diplomatic smile. He shifted position slightly, allowing him to keep Minji in his peripheral vision. Nara guided him to recline in the shallow pool. Relax your mind and let the impressions flow naturally. As Taiho closed his eyes, he felt the neural connection deepen. Images of Marexian culture flowed into his consciousness, their art, architecture, social structures. But now he noticed something new, small discordant notes, like static in the smooth flow of information. These disruptions seemed to coincide with moments when Minji touched the water near him. Carefully, he tried an experiment. He directed his thoughts toward curiosity about Merexian political structures. Immediately, he felt Nera and Yuna's minds respond with images of their consensus-based governance. But from Minji, he sensed hesitation, and then what felt like a carefully constructed response, a perfect, idealized version of the same information. Too perfect to be natural. She was hiding something. "The markings on your arm are beautiful," Taiho said casually to Minji as she applied a new oil to his shoulders. "They're different from what I've observed on other Merexians." Her large eyes flickered briefly to Nera before she answered. "These are family markings. Each lineage has unique patterns." "How fascinating," Taiho responded. "Are family groups involved in government decision-making?" "All voices are considered in the harmonious consensus," she replied smoothly, too smoothly. The neural connection flickered with something she was suppressing. Nera tilted her head slightly. "Minji's family has traditionally advocated for cautious expansion. They have concerns about rapid integration with new species." That confirmed it. Minji represented a faction that opposed alliance with humans. She was here to assess him, and by extension, all humans, for weaknesses. As if on cue, Minji produced a small crystal instrument. "This resonance tool helps align neural pathways," she explained. "May I use it to scan your response patterns?" "Of course," Taiho agreed, while his military instincts went on high alert. Through the neural connection, he detected Nera's slight surprise. This wasn't a standard part of the ritual. As Minji moved the crystal device over his chest, Taiho felt subtle probing sensations in his mind. She wasn't just measuring neural responses. She was actively searching for specific information about human physiology, stress responses, and defensive capabilities. Two could play at this game. Taiho deliberately relaxed his body, allowing the scanner to detect only calm, measured responses. At the same time, he directed his thoughts toward memories of Earth's natural beauty. Oceans, mountains, forests. Pleasant, non-threatening images. "Your homeworld appears magnificent," Minji commented, adjusting her scanner. "Are all humans so connected to natural environments?" "Many are," Taiho replied. Then, carefully he added, "though some prefer our megacities with their protective shields and defense grids." He hadn't mentioned defense systems in a threatening way, just as a casual fact. But through the neural link, he sensed Minji's immediate interest. The scanner lingered over his heart. "Your cardiac system increases activity when you mention defenses," she noted. "Does discussing protection trigger stress responses in humans?" "Not stress," Taiho corrected with a smile. "Pride. Security allows cultures to flourish peacefully." Through their connection, he directed the thought specifically to Nera and Yuna. Security prevents exploitation by those with harmful intentions. He felt their minds register understanding, while Minji's scanner moved more rapidly. "The water temperature will increase now," Nera announced. "It enhances information transfer." As the pool warmed, Taiho felt the neural connection become more intense. Minji's scanning became more aggressive, pushing deeper into his thoughts about Earth's defenses and human physical vulnerabilities. Rather than resist, Taiho decided on a different approach. He would give her information, but shape it carefully. "I notice your scanner focuses on biological responses," he said conversationally. "You should know that humans have remarkable adaptive capabilities. Our immune systems can reconfigure to counter unknown pathogens within days." This was a slight exaggeration, but delivered with complete confidence. Through the neural link, he sensed Minji's doubt and concern. "Is that unique among species you've encountered?" he asked innocently. "It is unusual," Minji admitted, her large eyes narrowing slightly. Taiho nodded as if this was commonplace knowledge. "Our medical science developed rapidly after we survived several pandemic events. Our bodies remember and adapt." Again, not entirely accurate, but the implications were clear. Biological weapons would be ineffective against humans. He felt Minji's scanner shift focus. And your psychological responses are equally adaptive, he continued calmly as Yuna applied more oil to his shoulders. Human stress actually enhances performance in crisis situations. Through the neural connection, he projected confidence and resilience, the qualities that had helped humanity survive its own turbulent history. Fascinating, Nara interjected. The neural patterns confirm this dual response to threat, both physiological and psychological adaptation. Minji's scanner moved to Taiho's brain patterns, yet humans also show strong emotional reactions. These could create vulnerabilities in diplomatic situations. Taiho smiled. Emotion drives our creativity and problem-solving. Without it, we couldn't adapt so quickly to new situations. He felt Minji probing for anger triggers, fear responses, anything that could be exploited in negotiations. Instead of hiding these, Taiho allowed her to see the truth. Humans experienced strong emotions, but could also channel them productively. As the ritual continued, Taiho realized he needed to understand Minji's faction better. Through the neural connection, he began his own subtle investigation. I sense some Erections might have concerns about alliance with humans, he said carefully. That's natural when cultures first meet. We had similar debates among our own leadership. What resolved these debates for humans? Nara asked. Understanding that diversity strengthens all parties, Taiho replied, directing this thought especially toward Minji. Different perspectives help identify blind spots. Through their connection, he felt Minji's reaction, a complex mixture of skepticism and reluctant interest. Her faction feared human unpredictability, seeing it as a threat to Merexian harmony. Some believe preservation of our ways requires careful isolation, Minji said finally, her scanner still moving over Taiho's body. Rapid integration has dissolved other cultures we've encountered. Now they were getting somewhere. Taiho nodded thoughtfully. A valid concern. Earth history shows similar patterns when cultures with different technological levels interact. Through the neural link, he shared images of human colonization and its negative impacts on indigenous populations. Minji's surprise was evident. She hadn't expected this admission. You acknowledge the risk you present? She asked. I acknowledge the risk any first contact presents, Taiho corrected, which is why protective cultural measures should be part of any alliance agreement. As he said this, he sensed something important through the neural connection. Minji's faction wasn't opposed to alliance with humans specifically. They feared any rapid cultural exchange. Earth was simply the latest potential threat to Merexian traditions. Cultural preservation clauses could be explicitly included in agreements, Nara suggested, glancing at Minji. Exchange rates could be moderated to prevent overwhelming either society. For the first time, Taiho felt Minji's rigid posture soften slightly. Such provisions would need to be binding. Of course, Taiho agreed. Both cultures benefit from maintaining their unique strengths. The scanning device finally lowered. Through the neural connection, Taiho sensed that Minji had found humans more complex and perhaps more reasonable than her faction had anticipated. As the ritual moved to its final phase, Taiho realized he had accomplished something significant. Not only had he detected a faction opposing the alliance, but he had begun to understand their concerns and even suggest possible compromises. More importantly, he had demonstrated that humans could be both open and strategic, willing to share but also aware when they were being assessed. When he finally emerged from the pool, Taiho felt Nara's approval through their fading neural connection. You navigate complex currents with unusual skill, Lieutenant Commander, she said quietly as she handed him a drying cloth. As do you, he replied with a knowing glance. He suspected she had been well aware of Minji's agenda from the beginning. Tomorrow's council meeting will be interesting, Nara continued. Many voices will speak on the proposed alliance. I look forward to hearing all perspectives, Taiho said, looking directly at Minji. especially those concerned with cultural preservation. Minji met his gaze, her expression unreadable, but her neural impression clearer. Reluctant respect. What had begun as a hidden assessment had transformed into the beginning of genuine understanding. Taiho had turned a potential threat into valuable intelligence, not just about Marexian factions, but about the core concerns that would need to be addressed for any successful alliance. As he prepared to rejoin the human delegation, Taiho couldn't help but smile at the irony. This welcome ritual had indeed cleansed away something important. The illusion that this diplomatic mission would be simple or straightforward. The ritual entered its final phase. Taiho sat on a heated stone bench as the three Marexians applied the last of the ceremonial oils. The neural connection was at its strongest now, creating a bridge between his mind and theirs that transcended ordinary language. Before we conclude, traditionally there is time for questions and clarifications, Nara explained, her iridescent hands gently applying oil to his temples. Is there anything you wish to understand better about our people? Taiho recognized the opportunity. This intimate setting, away from recording devices and formal protocols, was perfect for the kind of honest exchange that couldn't happen in official meetings. Yes, he said carefully. I sense there are concerns about humans that haven't been openly discussed. I'd prefer to address them now, rather than have them undermine our alliance later. Nara and Yuna exchanged glances. Even Minji looked surprised at his directness. That is, unusually forthright, Nara admitted. Most species prefer to maintain diplomatic facades. Humans value efficiency, Taiho replied with a small smile. And I can already feel your concerns through our connection. Your people worry about our unpredictability, don't they? The neural link hummed with confirmation. Images flowed into Taiho's mind, Marexian analysts reviewing human history, noting the rapid shifts in politics, technology, and culture that characterize Earth's development. Your species makes dramatic changes in direction without apparent consensus, Yuna said. This pattern suggests potential instability in long-term agreements. And your warriors, Minji added, her voice cool but not hostile. They show concerning adaptability in conflict situations. The strategic implications are troubling. Taiho nodded, accepting their observations without defensiveness. Through the neural link, he projected understanding rather than justification. These qualities developed because Earth wasn't unified until recently, he explained. Different human groups competed, forcing rapid adaptation and innovation. But what you see as unpredictability, we see as creativity and problem-solving. He felt their minds processing this perspective, particularly Nara's genuine curiosity. Show us, she requested. Taiho focused his thoughts, sharing memories of human achievements through the neural connection, artistic breakthroughs, scientific discoveries, social movements that transformed entire societies peacefully. He showed how the same adaptability that made humans formidable in conflict also drove their greatest accomplishments. Remarkable, Yuna whispered, her large eyes widening as she absorbed the images. The pattern is consistent. You embrace change rather than fearing it. Not all change, Taiho clarified. But we've learned that stagnation is often more dangerous than controlled evolution. Through the neural link, he sensed Minji's continued skepticism. Her mind projected images of other alliances the Marexians had formed, species that had initially seemed compatible but later brought disruption to Marexian society. The Zolteri claimed similar creative benefits, she said. Their influence led to significant social fragmentation among our outer colonies. This was valuable information, something that would never have been shared in formal negotiations. Taiho understood now. The Marexians had been burned before. That explained your caution, he acknowledged. May I ask how the Zolteri alliance unfolded? The three Marexians shared glances again, but Nara nodded approval. Through their connection, Taiho received a compressed history, how the Zolteri had initially presented themselves as peaceful traders, but gradually introduced divisive philosophies and extractive economic practices. Several Marexian colonies had adopted Zolteri values, eventually breaking away from the collective harmony that defined Marexian civilization. "I understand," Taiho said when the memory transfer finished. "You fear humans could have a similar effect." "The pattern similarities are concerning," Minji confirmed. Taiho considered this carefully. The neural connection allowed him to understand their fears at a deeper level than words alone could convey. The Marexians treasured their social harmony above all, even above technological advancement or territorial expansion. "What if we structured our alliance differently?" he suggested. "Instead of open cultural exchange, we could establish specialized contact zones where interaction is carefully monitored. Cultural transmission would require explicit approval from both sides." He felt their surprise at this proposal. Most species fought for maximum access and influence. "You would accept such limitations?" Nora asked. "Humans have learned from our own first contact mistakes," Taiho explained. "Unrestricted cultural exchange often harms both societies. Controlled interaction allows both cultures to adapt gradually." Through the neural link, he shared Earth's historical examples of colonial damage, how indigenous cultures have been overwhelmed by sudden exposure to different technologies and social systems. "We don't want to repeat those mistakes," he said simply. The shift in the room was palpable. Even Minji's mental barriers softened slightly. "Your perspective is unexpected," she admitted. "But how can we trust that all humans share this view? Your species lacks unified consciousness." It was a fair question. Taiho thought carefully before answering. "You're right that we don't all think alike," he acknowledged. "But that's precisely why the controlled exchange model would work. It allows for oversight from both sides, preventing any single human faction from dominating the relationship." As he spoke, Taiho felt something change in the neural connection. Nara and Yuna were actively advocating for his proposal in their own mental communication with Minji, a subtle negotiation happening beneath the surface conversation. Taiho decided to take a risk. Through the neural link, he directed a thought specifically to Nara and Yuna. "There are those in both our societies who fear change. We must find a path that addresses their concerns while still moving forward." Their mental responses indicated agreement. More surprisingly, he felt Minji register the exchange, and her realization that she was being outmaneuvered within her own ritual team. Perhaps such an approach could address certain factional concerns, Minji said carefully. Taiho seized the opening. "I believe there's something else we should discuss openly. Through our connection, I sense another group is working against this alliance, beyond those with reasonable concerns about cultural preservation." The atmosphere in the room tensed immediately. Minji's posture stiffened, but Taiho noticed it wasn't defensive. It was alert. "What do you perceive?" Nara asked, her voice lowered. "Fragments only," Taiho admitted, "but enough to recognize deliberate interference. Someone has accessed your assessment data on humans and modified key conclusions. They're presenting us as more aggressive than your actual findings indicate." This was a calculated guess based on subtle cues he'd picked up through the neural connection. Contradictions between the Marexians' direct impressions of him and what they'd been told to expect. The effect was immediate. All three Marexians went still, their mental shields strengthening instinctively. Then Nara's mind cautiously reached toward his. "How did you detect this?" Her thoughts asked directly. Military training. Pattern recognition. The discrepancies in your expectations versus your direct observations were too consistent to be random. Yuna joined the silent conversation. The security implications are severe. If someone has manipulated official assessment data. It suggests a coordinated effort to prevent alliance. Taiho completed her thought. "This is a serious accusation," Minji said aloud, but her mental impression carried no hostility, only focused calculation. What would humans gain by exposing such interference? It was a test question. Taiho answered honestly. "Stability. An alliance built on manipulated data would eventually fail. That serves neither of our interests. Through the neural connection, he sensed Minji making a decision. Her mental barriers shifted, revealing new information. She wasn't merely representing a cautious faction. She was a security operative investigating the same data discrepancies Taeho had detected. "Your perception is correct, Lieutenant Commander," she said formally. "I am not only a representative of the Preservation Coalition. I am also tasked with internal security assessment." Nara and Yuna showed no surprise. They had known. "We believe someone is attempting to sabotage the alliance," Nara explained. "But we lacked confirmation until your neural patterns provided external verification." Taeho understood the elegant trap they had set. The ritual hadn't just been about cultural exchange. It had been a sophisticated counterintelligence operation. His reactions to their questions had confirmed their suspicions about data manipulation. "We needed an outsider perspective uncorrupted by our internal politics," Yuna added. "Your military background made you ideal." "Now we face a problem," Minji said, her tone businesslike. "The faction working against us will present their manipulated data at tomorrow's council meeting. Without proof of interference, their assessment will carry significant weight." Taeho considered the situation. What if we could demonstrate the discrepancy directly? Compare their data with the real-time neural readings you've collected during this ritual. That would require you to submit to public neural scanning during the council meeting, Nora warned. "Many species find that deeply uncomfortable." "Would it work?" Taeho asked simply. The three Marexians exchanged glances, having a rapid silent conversation through their own mental connection. "Yes," Minji finally answered. "A direct comparison would expose the manipulation, but it places you in a vulnerable position. Your actual thoughts would be accessible to the entire council." Taeho smiled. "Then that's exactly what we'll do." Nothing demonstrates trustworthiness like complete transparency. Through the neural connection, he felt their respect. And something more from Nara and Yuna. A growing alliance that transcended formal diplomatic roles. "There is another advantage to this approach," Nara said, her large eyes showing something like admiration. "It demonstrates human adaptability as a positive trait. You're using the very quality they fear to overcome their opposition." "Poetic justice," Taeho agreed with a slight smile. As they finalized their strategy, the neural connection began to fade naturally as the ritual came to its conclusion. Even as the direct link diminished, Taeho felt that something permanent had been established, a foundation of understanding with Nara and Yuna, and reluctant respect from Minji. When he finally stood to dress, Taeho realized the welcome ritual had accomplished far more than cultural exchange. In this intimate setting, away from the formal constraints of diplomatic protocol, he had formed the personal connections that would determine the real success or failure of the alliance. "Tomorrow's council meeting will be memorable," Minji observed as she collected her scanning equipment. "That's one word for it," Taeho replied with a knowing look. Nara approached him one last time, her iridescent hand briefly touching his shoulder. "You have demonstrated that humans can be both unpredictable and trustworthy. A combination we did not believe possible. Perhaps there is more for our peoples to learn from each other than anyone suspected." As Taeho prepared to rejoin the human delegation, he couldn't help but smile at the thought of explaining to his superior officers how a bathing ritual had transformed into a counterintelligence operation and diplomatic breakthrough. Some things, he decided, were better experienced than explained. The Grand Council chamber of the Marexian space station gleamed with polished surfaces that shifted colors subtly as Taeho entered with the human delegation. Captain Lee glanced at him with curiosity. "You look different," she whispered as they took their positions at the curved negotiation table. "The ritual went well." "Better than expected," Taeho replied quietly. "Follow my lead if things get unusual." Captain Lee raised an eyebrow, but nodded. The four other human delegates arranged themselves according to protocol, straightening their formal uniforms. Across the chamber, 12 Marexian council members filed in, their flowing garments catching the light. Taiho immediately spotted Nara, Yuna, and Minji among them. They showed no sign of their previous familiarity. This was formal diplomatic space now. Ambassador Talon stepped forward to begin the proceedings. We welcome our human guests to this historic council. Before we address the proposed alliance terms, the assessment committee will present their findings on human Merexian compatibility. This was the moment of truth. A tall Merexian that Taiho didn't recognize moved to the center of the room. This must be the faction member they had discussed, the one who had manipulated the data. I am Counselor Serum, the Merexian announced. Our committee has thoroughly analyzed human behavioral patterns and physiological responses. A holographic display activated, showing complex data streams and conclusions. Even with his limited exposure to their language, Taiho could see the assessment was deeply negative, emphasizing human aggression, unpredictability, and cultural dominance tendencies. Based on these findings, Serum continued, we recommend limiting any alliance to basic trade protocols with strict security measures. Cultural exchange should be prohibited entirely. Captain Lee stiffened beside him. This was far more restrictive than anything they had anticipated. The other human delegates exchanged concerned glances. Taiho waited calmly. When Serum finished, he caught Nara's subtle nod from across the chamber. It was time. Taiho stood, and instead of speaking immediately, he performed the Merexian gesture of thoughtful consideration, a sequence of hand movements and posture shifts that he had learned through the neural connection. The movement was complex, with cultural significance that went beyond mere politeness. A ripple of surprise passed through the Merexian Council. No human should have known this ancient formal gesture. Honored Council, Taiho began, speaking in perfect Merexian cadence. I respectfully request verification of the assessment data through direct neural comparison. Gasps came from both delegations. Captain Lee looked at him in shock. The human delegates whispered urgently to each other. Lieutenant Commander, Captain Lee hissed, what are you suggesting? Trust me, Taiho whispered back before addressing the council again. I have experienced your welcome ritual and understand the value of neural truth. Let my thoughts speak directly to the validity of these assessments. Counselor Serum's large eyes narrowed. This is highly irregular. Humans have not demonstrated neural compatibility. And yet I stand before you having completed full neural exchange with 3 of your most respected counselors. Taiho countered smoothly. The ritual was most illuminating. He saw Serum's posture shift slightly as the counselor realized the implications. If Taiho had truly experienced neural exchange, then the manipulated data would be immediately apparent. I support this verification, Nara stated, standing. As primary ritualist, I can confirm Lieutenant Commander Park has demonstrated exceptional neural compatibility. Yuna rose as well. The scientific value is undeniable. Direct comparison would resolve any data discrepancies. The chamber hummed with tension as the council members conferred silently through their neural network. Taiho waited patiently, ignoring the confused stares from his fellow humans. Very well, Ambassador Talon finally announced. The council approves neural verification. Prepare the connection chamber. Captain Lee grabbed Taiho's arm as he turned to follow the Merexians. What exactly did they do to you in that ritual? She demanded quietly. Taiho smiled reassuringly. They showed me their true concerns and gave us a way to address them. I'll explain everything later. In the center of the chamber, a circular platform rose from the floor. Crystal pillars emerged, forming a structure that hummed with energy. Nara, Yuna, and 3 other council members positioned themselves around it. The human representative will stand at the center, Nara instructed. His neural patterns will be displayed for all to witness, alongside the assessment data. Taiho stepped onto the platform without hesitation. His military training helped him remain calm, though he knew what was coming would be intense. The neural connection during the ritual had been private and controlled. This would be open to all present. Begin the synchronization, Ambassador Talon ordered. Light swirled around Taiho as the crystal pillars activated. He felt the now familiar sensation of neural connection forming, but magnified tenfold. His thoughts, emotions, and memories became visible in the holographic display above, not as words, but as patterns and images that the Merexians could interpret. Simultaneously, Serim's assessment data appeared in a parallel display. The contradiction was immediately obvious to everyone with neural sensitivity. Where the assessment showed humans as calculating and aggressive, Taiho's actual thought patterns revealed complexity, caution, and a genuine desire for peaceful cooperation. Explain this discrepancy, Counselor Serim, Ambassador Talon demanded, his voice sharp with authority. Serim's composure faltered. The human may be masking his true nature. Impossible during full neural disclosure, Minji interrupted, stepping forward. And I can now confirm that the assessment data has been altered. As security overseer, I have been tracking this manipulation for some time. The chamber erupted in shocked conversations. Through the neural connection, Taiho could feel the Merexian Council's collective surprise and outrage. More significantly, he sensed their growing respect for his willingness to undergo such vulnerable exposure to prove the truth. Serim backed away, but found council guards blocking his retreat. This changes nothing, he declared. Humans remain a threat to our harmony. Perhaps, Taiho acknowledged, his thoughts projecting sincerity through the neural link. But we recognize that risk ourselves. He directed the neural display to show his earlier conversations with Nara, Yuna, and Minji, his proposed solution for controlled cultural exchange that would protect Merexian harmony while allowing beneficial interaction. The human suggests limitations on his own species' influence, one council member noted with surprise. Because we value your culture as it is, Taiho replied, letting his genuine appreciation for Merexian society flow through the connection. Alliance doesn't require becoming the same. It means complementing each other's strengths. The neural display shifted to show Earth's history, both its mistakes and achievements. Taiho didn't hide humanity's flaws, but showed how they had learned from them. Finally, he projected the image that had formed in his mind during the ritual. Two distinct societies moving in parallel, neither dominating the other, but occasionally extending bridges between them where mutual benefit existed. When the neural display ended, the chamber remained silent for several moments. Taiho stepped down from the platform, slightly dizzy but composed. Captain Lee looked at him with new understanding. That was incredible, she whispered. Ambassador Talon approached the human delegation. Lieutenant Commander Park has demonstrated a depth of understanding unprecedented in first contact situations. His proposal merits serious consideration. We agree, Captain Lee said, following Taiho's lead. The controlled exchange model protects both our interests. What followed was remarkable. Instead of the formal, stilted negotiations everyone had expected, the meeting transformed into something more genuine. With the barriers of suspicion removed, both sides spoke openly about their hopes and concerns for the alliance. By the day's end, a framework agreement had been drafted. It included the controlled exchange zones Taiho had proposed, cultural preservation guarantees for the Merexians, and technology-sharing protocols that benefited both species. As they prepared to sign the preliminary accord, Nara approached Taiho. What began as a simple welcome ritual has become something historic, she said. You transformed potential conflict into opportunity. That's what humans do best, Taiho replied with a smile. We adapt. Your adaptation skills are impressive, Yuna agreed, joining them. Few beings would have turned an embarrassing bathing ceremony into a diplomatic breakthrough. Even Minji offered reluctant acknowledgement. Your security insights were adequate, she said, which Taiho now understood was high praise from her. The signing ceremony was conducted with both human and Merexian protocols blended seamlessly. When it concluded, Ambassador Talon made a surprising announcement. In recognition of the unique bridge Lieutenant Commander Park has established between our peoples, The Council proposes a permanent neural link installation in the human embassy. This will ensure direct understanding continues beyond today's events. Captain Lee looked to Taiho, who nodded slightly. "We would be honored," she replied. "Though perhaps we should establish protocols for who undergoes the connection, and how often." Several Marexian council members laughed, an unusual sound that reminded Taiho of wind chimes. "The human adaptation continues," Nara observed with amusement, "already negotiating the terms of our next cultural exchange." As the formal proceedings concluded, Taiho reflected on the strange journey that had brought them here. What had begun as an awkward misunderstanding, being bathed by alien officials, had transformed into the foundation for a lasting alliance. Later, as the human delegation celebrated privately, Captain Lee pulled Taiho aside. "I don't think I'd want the full details of this welcome ritual," she said with a knowing smile. "But whatever happened in there, you've changed interspecies diplomacy forever." Taiho laughed. "Let's just say I learned that sometimes the most important diplomatic skill is being willing to get out of your comfort zone and get into a bath with alien diplomats," she teased. "Exactly," Taiho replied. "Though I'd recommend updating the briefing materials for the next representative." As the celebration continued, Taiho caught sight of Nara watching from a doorway. She made the subtle Marexian gesture for new beginnings before departing. He returned the gesture, knowing that what had started as the most awkward moment of his career had become its defining achievement and the beginning of humanity's most important interstellar relationship.